Hello, my name is Kanis Fatima, and today I'm here to deliver a presentation about understanding children through approaches, theories, and frameworks. The questions I'll be answering in this video is how is one historical and one contemporary approach to theories, early years learning framework, and national quality standard assist me in my understanding of children in my profession as an early childhood teacher. Let's have a quick look how I will handle this. And in this slide, I will be talking about my plan and how I would like to connect Froebel to Reggio Emilia, describe learning through the lens of Vygotsky, behavior through operant conditionings, and then map everything to early years life framework according to the Australian Government Department of Education and National Quality Standard as outlined by Australian Children's Education and Care Quality Authority, and then two short lesson illustrations. Let's talk about the historical approach of Froebel in the next slide. Froebel argued that the play is the serious work of childhood, and he believed that through play, children can learn patterning, creativity, persistence, and fine motor control, particularly through his gifts and occupations of blocks, paper folding, and beads. His method consists of providing rich materials and observing while lightly guiding, not controlling, which was described by Arthur and his colleagues in 2018. This preserves agency over compliance and positions children as competent learners, which is in line with Australian Child Agency and the intentionality of teaching frameworks as highlighted by Arthur and his colleagues and Australian Government Department of Education. On the next slide, I will focus on a more contemporary approach, and that is Reggio. Reggio has a philosophy that views the child as a capable, curious rights holder who has 100 languages to express themselves. It is a collaborative documentation work with families where we capture children's voices and actions to make learning visible alongside designing the environment as a third teacher. In practice, I work with them as a co-learner and facilitate guiding principles to ensure documentation is meaningful, not merely performative, as noted by the Education Hub and Arthur and his colleagues in 2018. I will now elaborate on the theory of learning with others, and this concerns Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory. Vygotsky illustrates learning is social at first and then it is internalized. In pretend play, I'm the doctor and you are the patient. Children rehearse language, rules, and self-control. Vygotsky also proposed the idea of zone of proximal development as the just right gap in which a child can achieve success with minimal assistance. In my case, I might scaffold by providing a prop, a word, or a guiding question, and then slowly withdrawing my assistance to give control back to the child. This is the process that fosters self-regulation and confidence, as noted by Brady Kitey and Brandy Soskini in 2023. When discussing behavior and routines, I will reference operant conditioning. And it reminds me that behavior is learned and repeated. I use specific praise. You shared the blocks and that helped your friend. Visual routines and then prompts to support inclusion and independence. And then I fade prompt to avoid reward dependence. Research by Mahon and his colleagues in 2020 shows that class-wide positive behavior support can increase participation in preschool settings. Now, in the next slide, I will connect all this with early years learning framework that underlines the importance of nurturing, enduring, and positive bonds, having high expectations and equity, and integrating Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspective. These include play-based learning, intentional teaching, and a continuous assessment and planning cycle. The 5 outcomes encompass identity, well-being, connection, learning, and communication. In my adaptive instruction designs, I set activities, document progress, and then plan next steps with families as outlined by Australian Government Department of Education. Quality is monitored through the National Quality Standard and it guides improvement across 7 quality areas, but I will focus on area 1, that is educational program and practice, area 3, physical environment, and area 5, relationships with children. I will use assessment and rating reflections on our quality improvement plan to align setups, interactions, and documentations with continuous improvements guided by Australian Children's Education and Care Quality Authority. In the next slide, I will try to put it together with 2 quick examples. In my classroom, usually I employ a couple of intense examples, and my first example would be Froebel, Vygotsky, and early years life framework, and the example is Block City, and I will incorporate all these 3. In a block set, I encourage children to use open-ended blocks and create a model along to a photograph of local building, indigenous landmarks, and others as needed. I will then ask zone of proximal development questions. What could make this tolerance still stable? And introduce feature labels. I plan to document my practice against early years learning framework and communication, and to plan next steps like ramps, arches, and other structures as discussed by Arthur and his colleagues in 2018 Australian Government Department of Education. My example 2 would be dramatic play clinic. Children co-design the clinic, take turns, and have rich print props. I model vocabulary once, then provide fading support as peers continue the play. In my reflections, I draw evidence for Quality Area 1 curriculum choices and Area 5 responsive interactions. These strategies are supported by the Education Hub and SCCSE Brady Kaiti and Brandy Soskini in 2023, who described the importance of sustained and guided play. This is all about my presentation, but before I finish, I would like to say every child is unique and there's no one size fits all in early learning. Inspired by Froebel, Vygotsky, and the early years learning framework, I aim to nurture each child's curiosity, creativity, and sense of belonging through play, because play is where real learning begins. This is all about my presentation. Thank you so much for listening to me.